All right, welcome back to another installment to Steve's Auto Care. All right, so we're working on a Jeep. It's a Wrangler. This is a 2000 Wrangler 4-liter Sport, and what we are doing is the steering gear. Now, let me tell you about this. I'm not a big fan of doing steering gears. It's just heavy-duty work, but on the Jeep it's not so bad. It took me probably about 30 minutes to get it out. Granted, I'm a professional and I have power tools. Anyway, so let's get right down to it. There's the steering gear. The very first thing you're going to want to do, I got a socket that keeps moving. All right, anyway, first thing you want to do is go over to your power steering, and you have the high pressure line here. You're going to take that off. Before you do that, if you can, suck the fluid out of the reservoir. Now I have a vacuum sucker that will extract the fluid. In fact, where did I put it? It's one of those. It is air operated, and so I just put the hose, it's hanging up to drain. But just use that to get the fluid out. I've seen guys use giant syringes to get the fluid out. Otherwise, you can pull your low pressure hose off and just let it drain into a receptacle. All right, so you get the fluid out, you remove the lower hose or the low pressure hose, then you go and take off the high pressure side. The best tool for this is a line wrench, and a wrench is not going to give you, what do they do with it, a whole lot of ability to move. So I use these guys there. 16 millimeter was the size, and you see it's a crow's foot, but it's a line wrench opening. Okay, that's the best thing to use on the high pressure side. So once that gets off, and the reason why you want to take these lines off is where the steering gear is mounted on the Jeep, it's nearly impossible to get the hoses off the steering gear. So it's easier just to pop them off the pump and pull them out with the gear. Now, what makes these such a pain in the bahootie to do? One, they're kind of heavy. This one's a little bit on the lighter side. It weighs about 30 pounds. The nut, or the pitman arm, which is this guy here, and notice it's still connected. That's on with it's a, I don't know what the fractional size is, but it's in between a 34 millimeter and a 32 millimeter socket. 32 is too small. 34 is just enough. It rattled a little bit and it was able to get it off. But you got a lock washer and the nut. The nut is put on with 187 foot-pounds of torque, so it's on there really good. But these guys get rusty, and the pitman arm does not want to just pop off. So you have to use a puller, okay? And you use the pitman arm puller and you put it on there, and it gonna go kind of like this. And as you drive that, the center thing, the push rod, if you drive it in towards the, I don't know, where the stub here, it's going to get to the point where it won't move at all. You can't push the push rod in any further, and the pitman arm still hasn't come off. So that's when you get the BFH, which stands for Big Fudging Hammer, and you have to hit the arm while it's under tension with the puller. A couple of good whacks, it will just a half, maybe a quarter of a millimeter, it will slide down, and then you can tighten it up a little bit more. Whack it a few more times, just tighten it up a little bit more, and then that final hack, or hit with the hammer, it will pop loose. Some guys are saying that they broke the pusher rod, and or they crack this aluminum U-shaped thing. You got to use vibration. Vibration is what breaks the connection of the rust between these serrations and the pitman arm. So I use an impact gun to drive it in. That further vibrations, and then you whack it with the hammer, and that's more vibrations, and you eventually get loose. Once that's off, you can attack this. Now that's your steering coupler. The steering coupler, you can get to it if you go right through here. And what I used, where is it? It's a 1/2 inch. 13 is a little wobbly on it. 1/2 inch is what fits. And see if I can show you the extension here that makes it really worthwhile. This is a snap-on, I believe it is. Yes, so snap-on. Okay, it's a wobbly extension. See how it's not fully squared? It's got a little round to it. That allows the socket to wobble on it, and that allowed me to get at the right angle to get the nut for the, or the bolt out for the steering shaft. Also on the steering shaft, let's see if we can get it. Yeah, you can kind of see it. I'm going to point out to it right here. That shaft will go right into that shaft there. So there's your collapsible gear, or your collapsible column. So when you're down at the bottom, you can use a pry bar, is what I use, to pry the steering shaft off the nub, and it will suck up into the arm, or into the other shaft there. Now it's just a matter of taking the hoses off the old gear and putting them on. Now notice, not everybody can do this, but I do it. I got it capped, so I'm not making and dripping fluid all over the place. So I just put a plug in that hose so it's not dripping. I also sprayed it down, used the entire can of brake clean to kind of clean it, because that's where it was leaking from, is right here. And so over time it gets the whole thing coated with fluid, and it just becomes a mess. So I use an entire can of brake clean, just clean it off. That just makes my life better and easier. So there you have it. Steering gear on a 2000 Jeep Cherokee. Whew. I know I haven't made a video in a while, so thank you for hanging in there, and thank you for the new subscribers. You guys make this worthwhile. Shoot me a comment here and there if you want, and we will talk to you later. Bye.